You can ask me. That'd be awesome. Try to another dog. And then the kids are too standing there, not back.
Can you do the picture for me? See, I don't see you.
I didn't think it would be good. My brain is empty. Do you need a pen? I have no thoughts.
You're good there? No, extra.
Yeah, she's good.
All right, well, let's get started this evening. And we're going to start by reading just a couple of verses from our story in our text this morning, or this evening. I keep saying good morning, I don't know why. Anyway, tonight, Judges chapter 13 and verse 17 says, "Then Manoah said to the angel of Yahweh, 'What is your name, that when your words come to pass we may honour you?' The angel of Yahweh said to him, 'Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?'" And wonderful there, it's a word which is often used for the wonderful works of God, his mighty works, but also an expression that he is too majestic for words in both who he is and what he does. So we're going to sing a few songs this morning. Seriously.
Just go with it.
He gave me beauty for ashes, from a verse we looked at on Sunday, the oil of joy for mourning. He gave me beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that we might be trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. He gave me beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that we might be trees of righteousness, planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. And then with that verse in mind, an idea, his name is wonderful, Jesus my Lord. His name is wonderful. His name is wonderful. His name is wonderful. Jesus my Lord. He is the mighty King, Master of everything. He ended on Sunday with all of that to give thanks and to praise our God. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. And now the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. Give thanks. Well, if there's anything we've seen and learned in Judges, it's indeed that God moves in mysterious ways, and He uses people and circumstances that you don't expect to do His will. And so, before we get into the last of our Judges tonight, God moves in a mysterious way. God moves in a mysterious way, His wonders to perform. He plants His footsteps in the sea and rides upon the storm. Deep in His dark and hidden mind, with never-failing skill, He fashions all His bright designs and works His sovereign will. So God, we trust in You. Oh God, we trust in You. Oh, fearful saints, to courage take, the clouds that you now dread are big with mercy's hand will break in blessings on your head. Judge not the Lord by feeble sense, but trust Him for His grace. Behind a frowning providence, that in mind, let's get to the last of our judges before we bring it all to a close and an end of our study next week. Thank you. So, after Abimelech, who judged Israel? Tola! Good job.
Where's Kevin?
All right, so we're going to be Judges 13 through 16 tonight, and we don't have time to deal in detail with all of it. There is massive amount of things we could deal with and look at through the story of Samson, but we just don't have time for that tonight. So we'll sweep through, we'll look at some particular things, but as we start, the opening question there for us to contemplate is, as a Christian, what's the hardest part about living differently from the rest of the world? And as you think about how to answer that question, let's try not to focus on the easy picking extreme sort of things like being persecuted. Let's think about what is the hardest part for you to live differently from the rest of the world. What makes it hard in your situation?
It's harder because the others are not Christians and you have pains in your heart because of this.
Pain in your heart? Yes, sure. It causes you pain and because of what you see, other people, and the future you know for them. Yes, sir.
The things you're passionate about, the people laugh at.
Well, yes, yeah. Of the things you're passionate about, other people laugh at. Yes.
Pastor, you are judged easily.
Sorry?
You are judged easily.
Judged easily. Yeah, that's true. Judged easily, or even considered to be easily judging others. Maybe it's sometimes the isolation you have from friends, or things, I can't do that or go that place or follow that path because I don't like it, and that can isolate you and separate you from people. Perhaps it's the battling of temptation because it's what you want to do. You see people doing things and you think, I should be different than that, but I would really like to do that. That can make it hard. There is a cost to discipleship. There's always a cost to following Jesus. And that's in part what that question gets us to, and some of what we'll consider as we look here at the life of Samson, or at least portions of the life of Samson. And consider, of course, most of us probably, maybe we don't familiar with all the details of his life, but we'll know the general gist and the big portions of the life of Samson. But let's start here at the beginning and work our way through. So we're going to start just by reading the first 5 verses of Judges 13 and look at the first couple of questions on our thing there. So Judges 13 begins like this. Again, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yahweh, and Yahweh delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. Now there was a certain man from Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. The angel of Yahweh appeared to the woman and said to her, Indeed, now you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore, please be careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head. For the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. All right, so let's, again, just to summarise where we're at and what's happening here. Question number 1. What is the situation in Israel? What is the situation in Israel? Mostly verse 1 gives us the description of that, but read into it and understand it based on the context of where we are. What's the situation? They did evil again in the sight of the Lord. The Philistines took over and oppressed for 40 years. Yep. Sorry? Can you hear the writer in verse 1? Again, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. Like you can really hear, it's almost like he's sighing as he writes this, like, not again, we've been here before. Again. They've been put into oppression here. They'll be in oppression for 40 years. The question isn't here, but let's ask the question. So we've talked about that cycle that roughly identifies what happens through the judges. But how does this, based on what we have here in these first 5 verses, how does what we see here with the beginning of this story differ from what we expect in the cycle of judges? What's the difference here from, you'll say, Jephthah at the beginning? And yes?
We don't see the Israel crying out right after.
Right, no cry for help,
The
no
angel of the Lord.
repentance.
Yeah. The angel of the Lord appeared.
The angel of the Lord does appear here, which he has before, so to Gideon. And there is, interestingly, the way he's written this, the first portion of this story is meant to draw our attention to other aspects of all the other judges.
Yeah.
And one of those is with Gideon and the angel of the Lord. But you will see, as you look through, you go, that sounds familiar to Jephthah, that sounds to Othniel, that there are deliberate links here through that. But yet, so there's no repentance and there's no cry out to God for help here. In fact, not only is there no repentance or cry out for help, but as you read through the story and you see how Samson is living his life, you realize that what it looks like is not only is Israel not repentant, they are quite happily assimilating with the people of the Philistines, becoming like them, living like the Philistines, and have sort of taken their life as this is what it will be. We're going to live like the Philistines. Some suggest, and I think it's probably a good way to look at it, that when you look at Samson, so you know the story, I'm guessing for most of you. What's the physical, material thing that shows us Samson's weakness? Well, Delilah, women. Women, like there's a bunch of them here.
Like usual.
All right, so there's a bunch of them here. Delilah brings to the end, but there's a bunch of them here, right? So in this story, what we have is, when we look at where Israel's at, Israel here is in trouble, but they just seem to be living like this. So Samson seems to be illustrative of Israel itself. Delilah and the women of the Philistines, right? So how easily Samson moves in and out of relationship with the Philistines is also how easily Israel moves in and out of relationship with the Philistines. And so there is this picture in Samson of the much bigger circumstance of Israel and where they fit. Any other difference you notice about the beginning of this story as opposed to the beginning of the other judges' stories?
Samson had God's spirit.
He does, but we see that on some of the others too.
And he married the Philistine because it was God's plan.
Kind of, but we'll get to that. As we look at just the beginning here. Yeah.
He was to have a vow.
He was to have a vow. And there's some interesting stuff about that which we'll look at. I think that's the next question about that vow. When, yeah.
God choosing him before he's even born.
So God chooses him before he's born.
Yeah.
In all the other places, in all the other judges
Yeah.
that we see, in the circumstances, Israel cries out to God, and God raises the judge there.
Yeah.
The judge is already there.
Yeah.
Somebody who's there. He finds Gideon. He finds Othniel, who's already a leader.
They were born.
They're already there.
Yeah.
When this story begins, Samson's not born.
No.
So they're in oppression for 40 years, and then it's not going to be until Samson's a man that he actually starts to take his position as a deliverer. He'll do it. So there is a significant period here of difference. God doesn't immediately raise up a deliverer. This is a much longer process that takes place. Let's look at question number 2, which adds to the discussion a little bit. So it says, an angel of the Lord promises a son to Manoah's wife, and it has 2 parts to it. What is he to be, and what will he do? Now, before we answer those 2 things, I just want to notice one thing, and that is, as you read through this, and we're going to read through another section in just a moment, but as you read through these and see the description of what happens, well, let's start here. In the verses we read, the first 5, who does the angel go to? Who does the angel of the Lord go to?
To the wife.
Manoah's wife. Okay, now the angel is in, and Jesus is going to come back again. And again, the second time he comes back, he comes to Manoah's wife again. She plays an extremely essential and important role here, and yet remains unnamed. As you read through those first few verses, did it remind you of any other circumstance in the Bible, of any other event in the Bible? As you read through, just here, these first 5 verses, does it remind you of anywhere else? There's nodding over here. What's the nodding over here?
Where Jesus gets born and the angel goes to Mary.
Yes.
Yeah.
The announcement to both John the Baptist and Jesus.
Virgin Mary.
We, New Testament people, are meant to see that. There's similarities. Yes? Yes, Zechariah. Yep. And part of that plays into the same idea of Manoah's wife not having a name. At least not that she didn't have a name, that we don't know her name. That is, we have here a place where the unexpected happens in the most unlikely places, to the most unlikely people. Right? As we begin this, you read through this, almost none of this means anything. Like, out of nowhere, who's Manoah? And who's his wife? And Zora? Where is Zora? You have no idea where that is.
No one knows.
It's completely unknown.
Middle East.
And that's the point. God has moved, as he often does, in the most unlikely places, to the most unlikely people, the most unlikely ways, and it doesn't matter if they have a name or not. It's the unknown, the little things, the places that we don't expect where God does his work. And that's all part of connecting the dots of the Gospels through the Bible. Now, let's get more directly to the questions that are addressed here. What is he to be? This child that's going to be born, what is he to be? A Nazarite. Okay, and you've got the reference there to number 6 if you need to look it up as a thing. But what does that mean? What does it mean to be a Nazarite? What does that?
To serve God.
It's a thing to serve God.
Yes. And to kill the enemies of God.
Sorry, to
kill the enemies of God.
he will be, that will be his purpose, to get the enemies of God. What's the deal with all the don't cut your hair, don't drink, don't touch stuff? What's the deal with all that?
Probably his wife liked to drink. Thinking.
Well, I don't know about that. Possibly. But it was. If you look at number 6, that was all part of the Nazarite vow too. That you don't cut your hair, don't drink, don't touch dead animals or dead people.
Usually when you're pregnant, you don't have to drink alcohol.
Well, we know that now.
Yeah.
We didn't know that so long ago. Yeah. It did have to do with the clean and unclean.
We knew for a long time.
Yeah. It had to do with being set apart, and that's primarily the idea of a Nazarite. Nazarite was a vow of dedication. And what you see is, not everybody was a priest, were they? But what was being asked of you when you took the Nazarite vow was to act like a priest. You were setting yourself apart to God, to dedicate yourself to God. Now, what we do know from number 6 is the Nazarite vow was voluntary. And it was limited. Like, it wasn't a lifelong commitment. You could say, I'm going to dedicate myself to God in this Nazarite vow, and I'm going to do it for 1 week or a year or whatever it will be until I achieve the purpose I'm set out for. So it was voluntary and it was temporary. Except for Samson.
Because he did choose it.
And it's usually the person who's doing the dedicating that does it. Now, Samson doesn't have a choice in this.
No.
It begins with his mother, and he is set aside this way. So he is set apart very specifically, very purposefully by God for a reason. And so that's what he is. He's a Nazarite, which was an out of the ordinary, voluntary, temporary vow. Samuel was the same in that he was dedicated for life, but Samuel and Samson are the outliers amongst those sorts of things. What will he do? Because the Nazarite vow was to set aside or to dedicate yourself for a specific purpose.
Deliver Israel from Philistines.
Okay, so he was going to deliver Israel. He was going to begin to deliver Israel and lead them to deliver them from the Philistines.
Yeah.
As this story begins, which is a very unusual way to begin the judges' stories, where are your hopes? As you hear what's happening here, God comes to this family. I'm going to give you a child in your barrenness. He's going to be set aside to me. He's going to deliver his people. Where are your hopes?
That he'll do it.
He'll do it. So our expectation is high.
Yeah.
So this is deliberate by the writer.
Yeah.
He's bringing our expectation high. God is going to do something wonderful. Samson is going to be great.
Yeah.
So he's deliberately setting our hopes up. but our optimism is very quickly squashed. It doesn't take long for him to... Perhaps, you might see it differently, and that's okay, but perhaps this is the most heartbreaking story in all of the Judges, yet it perfectly completes the trajectory of Israel through all of this, their decline to the very end. And yet so much of this story is unexpected. And there's part of it here which is also about what isn't known. Right? And you see these things happen, and we don't have time to go through that, but just notice these things when you read it yourself. Look for the things that Samson doesn't know along the way and then finds out. There are things that Samson's parents don't know and then find out. There's things that Israel doesn't know and finds out. There is this mystery of this cover-up of things that people don't know along the way that then become apparent. And that's all part of the way he writes this story. Now, you can read through that summary of what it is, or even read through the story yourself through chapter 13, 14, and 15. But we quickly find out, don't we, that Samson is probably the worst Nazarite ever. Like, he is terrible. Like, he doesn't even start well. I mean, we don't know what he's like as a child and when his parents were looking after him, but he is awful at doing this and following the guidelines and seeking God the way he ought to. And here's the thing. So chapter 14 and verse 4, amongst what goes on, says, "But his father and mother did not know that it was of Yahweh that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. For at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel." And this is, so he's going and he's going to get married to this Philistine woman. And here's one of those things that people don't know. Right? His parents don't know that God is going to use the sin of Samson here to bring about the deliverance of Israel. So that statement doesn't mean that God ordained this to happen in the terms of that God determined that Samson would marry a Philistine and that was it. Okay, this is not where God creates evil to do this. God is using Samson's stupidity, his ignorance and his rebellion, and he is going to turn that for his good and use that to destroy the Philistines. But his parents don't see that happening in this circumstance. But God is at work. All right, so let's jump forward. We're going to skip through a significant portion of his life, which is really all about him just being stupid and falling in love with the wrong women and causing problems, killing a bunch of people in jealousy and rage, and doing horrible, what appears to be horrible things, but all, step by step, destroying the people that are oppressing Israel. Again, like we've seen every time, had Israel done their job in the beginning, the Philistines wouldn't be a problem now. But they are. And so God is using Samson and all of his weakness to destroy the oppressor.
And he was just for 20 years, so he did something good.
Well, we'll see that at the end, and we'll weigh up at the end if he was good or bad, but we'll see. So let's skip over all of this, and of course, well, all right, so chapter 16. We'll get to chapter 16. We'll read this here. Chapter 16, verse 1 to 5. Now, Samson went to Gaza and saw a harlot there and went into her. When the Gazites were told Samson has come here, they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night at the gate of the city. They were quiet all night, saying, "In the morning when it is daylight, we will kill him." And Samson lay low till midnight. Then he arose at midnight, took hold of the doors of the gate of the city and the two gateposts, pulled them up, bar and all, put them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. Afterward, it happened that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, "Entice him and find out where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to afflict him. And every one of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver." All right, so question number 3. What is the greatest problem for the Philistines when it comes to killing Samson?
Didn't know how to cancel his power.
Right, his strength. Yeah, they don't know what to do with it. He is just way too strong.
I've read somewhere that he was 1.8 meters in his back.
No idea. No idea if that's true or not. But he was strong. And he was strong because God gave him strength. But if you read before, you see he kills, after a thing happens with his wife, he kills 300 people and for a riddle. And then he kills more people because the man gives his wife to somebody else. He burns down villages. So he's done a significant amount of destroying the Philistines along the way till we get here. So it's definitely his strength. Now it doesn't seem. So in chapter 15 and verse 18 toward the end, after he has had one of his great exploits, in fact where he kills a bunch of people with a jawbone of a donkey, it says in chapter 15 verse 8, "Then he became very thirsty, so he cried out to Yahweh and said, 'You have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant. Now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised?' So God split the hollow place that is Lehi, and water came out, and he drank, and his spirit returned, and he revived." It doesn't seem, as you read through the stories of Judges, it doesn't seem that Samson has given very much thought up until this point about where his strength came from. Until here. And this is significant because what we find here is the reason he thinks about it is he is finally at a place where he doesn't have the strength he needs. He is weak, and he thinks he's going to die. And it's not until that point that it seems like he even considers that his strength has come from God. And he cries out to God, and God answers his prayer and strengthens him. In fact, after announcing his birth at the beginning of the story, the name of God is almost entirely absent until the end. He doesn't seem to be interested in God really at all, or consider God for where he's at. So their problem is his strength. What is their solution? From the verses we just read there at the beginning of chapter 16, verse 1 to 5. What's the solution the Philistines come up with?
Bribery.
There is bribery.
Not a good solution, not a clean
Sorry,
solution.
They get a woman to do their dirty work.
Yeah.
Now, clearly, that is his weakness. Like, he's been here already. His first wife, the reason he ends up the first time killing 300 people and taking their clothes is because he had, that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Because he had a riddle at his wedding party, and they didn't know, so they went to his wife and said, "Find out for us." And she flutters his eyes at him, and he tells the answer, and she tells him. So it's always been his weakness.
Yeah.
Here again, he's fallen in love with Delilah, and they're using that against him. So they're going to use his weakness against him, his heart, his love for Delilah. And he is certainly deeply infatuated with this woman. She has quite the control over him. All right, Judges 16, as we come to the next question, verse 6. So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me where your great strength lies and with what you may be bound to afflict you." And Samson said to her, "If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." So the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, and she bound him with them. Now men were lying in wait, staying with her in the room, and she said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But he broke the bowstrings as a strand of yarn breaks when it touches fire. So the secret of his strength was not known. Then Delilah said to Samson, "Look, you have mocked me and told me lies. Now, please tell me what you may be bound with." So he said to her, "If they bind me securely with new ropes that have never been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." Therefore Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." Men were lying in wait, staying in the room, but he broke them off his arms like a thread. Delilah said to Samson, "Until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me what you may be bound with." And he said to her, "If you weave the 7 locks of my head into the web of the loom." So she wove it tightly with the batten of the loom and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But he awoke from his sleep and pulled out the batten from the web from the loom. Then she said to him, "How can you say, 'I love you,' when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times and have not told me where your great strength lies." It came to pass, when she pestered him daily with her words and pressed him so that his soul was vexed to death, that he told her all his heart and said to her, "No razor has ever come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaven, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man." When Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come up once more, for he has told me all his heart." So the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought the money in their hand. Then she lulled him to sleep on her knees and called for a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. And she began to torment him, and his strength left him. And she said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." So he awoke from his sleep and said, "I will go out as before at other times and shake myself free." But he did not know that Yahweh had departed from him. Then the Philistines took him and put his eyes out and brought him down to Gaza. They bound him with bronze fetters, and he became a grinder in the prison. However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaven. All right, so question 5. Delilah tries to trap Samson 3 times. What happens each time?
He was a bit stupid.
Well, that is...
Big and stupid.
that's it. Yeah. He was probably blonde. No, I shouldn't say that.
Did you realize 3 times?
That was terrible. I didn't mean that. So, every time he breaks free. How is it that Delilah can say to him, "Tell me how to bind you up"? And like 3 times. And Samson doesn't stop to think, something's afoot here. Like, how can she be so direct?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. That.
That was rhetorical.
What was the answer? Yeah.
How could she be so direct? Question mark.
Because Delilah knew that Samson loved her.
Ah. She was playing on his love.
Yes. He was a womanizer.
She knew. She knew he was infatuated with her.
Yeah.
She didn't have to play around. And she plays this game with me, and you can see it at the last time, right?
Yeah.
Samson, if you really love me, you'll stop lying to me. Which is both a lure and a threat. That is, so it's the 3rd time, which is, if you really love me, you would have told me, stop lying to me. If you tell me a lie again, it's over. So she's manipulating his emotions.
Yeah. They should have given this one to somebody else.
which is why she can be so direct, because Samson is blinded by his infatuation and his lust for her and his what appears to him to be love. And so she pleads with him to confide in the one he loves. What happens what do you think happens each time to Samson as he goes through this? Until we get to the third one.
He puts up with it because he doesn't want to lose her.
He puts up with it. Do you think perhaps with each request, his resolve weakens? So each time she asks, his determination to keep it a secret is lessened. And I think we see that in the last one, because in the last one, before we actually get to the shaved head, he toys with her by talking about his hair.
Yeah.
Right? So we've gone from, just tie me up, to, tie my hair. And it's like, we're getting close. Till the next time she knows he's told me everything. He has been weakened as she pesters him every time. So how does she succeed the fourth time? Maybe we've already answered this in the discussion we've had here, but how does she succeed? Day in, day out. Samson, tell me. Stop lying to me, Samson. Nag. And, not just the nagging, but the manipulation and the playing on his emotions and all of that. And, of course, he's open to that because he hasn't guarded himself or been disciplined. And so it wears him down. So on top of her persistence and her manipulation, it's his own lack of discipline and lack of godliness which leads to this place. All right, verse 23 then, as we come to the next verse. Verse 23. Now, the lords of the Philistines gathered together to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to rejoice. And they said, "Our God has delivered into our hands Samson, our enemy." When the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, "Our God has delivered into our hands our enemy, the destroyer of our land, and the one who multiplied our dead." So it happened, when their hearts were merry, that they said, "Call for Samson, that he may perform for us." So they called for Samson from the prison, and he performed for them. And they stationed him between the pillars. Then Samson said to the lad who held him by the hand, "Let me feel the pillars which support the temple so that I can lean on them."
Yeah.
Now the temple was full of men and women, and the lords of the Philistines were there, about 3,000 men and women on the roof watching while Samson performed. Then Samson called to Yahweh, saying, "O Lord Yahweh, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me, I pray, just this once, O God, that I may with one blow take vengeance on the Philistines for my two eyes." Samson took hold of the two middle pillars which supported the temple, and he braced himself against them, one on his right and the other on his left. Then Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he pushed with all his might. The temple fell on the lords and all the people who were in it. So the dead that he killed at his death were more than he killed in his life. And his brothers and his father's household came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of his father Manoah. He had judged Israel 20 years. So, briefly here, how does the story end? Like, just summarize what happens here. Sorry? It's my favorite kind of story. Everyone dies. Sorry? That's an interesting question. I hadn't thought about that. He probably didn't know either.
I got a question. I think if you look at verse 20, the last sentence,
Well, that's probably true, because the Nazarite vow is much more than just the hair.
Yeah.
Um,
Whether it's the hair or not, as long as it covered from you.
yeah, right. And that's an interesting one, because I think the other side of that is also intriguing too, because Samson wakes up and, the people are waiting outside. Now, clearly, if you've had a head full of hair your whole life and you wake up and you have no hair on your head, you can tell. Right? I can tell when I get a haircut.
Yeah, yeah.
So it seems that Samson, even, when he gets up and goes, I've got no hair on my head, still says, I'm going to go out and just shake them off.
Yeah.
As if he's thinking, hair, no hair, I'm still pretty strong.
Yeah. Yeah, grow again. Yeah, the hair grow again.
Well, yeah, by the time he comes to this bit, yes, his hair is growing again.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he did God's job for which one he was given.
Well, he did.
Yeah.
One more interesting detail to consider. At the end, when he's doing his last great feat
Yeah.
to destroy more people in his death than in his life,
Yeah.
why does he want to do it? Revenge. So, his last great feat, even when he cries out to God, God, give me strength, is not, let me defeat the oppressors of your people, or let me lastly do something good for you. It's, let me get revenge for my eyes.
It doesn't matter. He did the job.
Even at the very end. He's selfish. Completely selfish. The only thing he wants is revenge for his eyes. He is still not thinking he's there to do a job for God. So, question 8. And this is perhaps open for a little bit of debate. Is Samson a success or a failure as a judge?
He is a success.
Anybody care to counter that? Or we all think success?
Depends how you measure this. What he accomplished or how he did it.
It just floors me that the end of verse 31 says he had judged Israel 20 years. What kind of judge was that?
Certainly not wise like Deborah. Let's take a straw. How many of you will say yes, success? Okay. How many say no, failure? How many not really sure? Fair enough. Because I think he's both. I think you can look at his life and say, in some ways he was a success,
Yeah.
and in many others he was a failure. So he was certainly a success in that he was chosen to deliver Israel from the oppression of the Philistines,
Yeah.
and he did that.
Yes, he did.
However, he was clearly a failure because he was weak, ungodly, and selfish.
So are we.
So he was not a godly judge. Did he accomplish the bigger purpose?
Yes.
Yes. Did he do it well? No. So I think it's fair to look at Samson's life and say he was both a success and a failure, depending on how you look at it and what aspect of his life you are looking at. It's not really easy to say one way or the other. But let's have a look and see at the end here the conclusion that we find in Hebrews. So we've referred to this verse before once or twice, and you probably know where we're headed to. Hebrews 11, verse 32 and 34, where it says this. Of course, this coming at the end of chapter well known for speaking to us about what faith is and illustrations of faith. Verse 32. And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, and Barak, and Samson, and Jephthah, also of David, and Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to flight the enemies of the aliens. So question 9 asks us this, based on what we've read here. Judges 16 brings us to the end of the account of the lives of the judges. What is surprising about the way the writer to the Hebrews describes these judges? Weakness made strong.
Yeah. But God said that he's going to use the weak people.
He did say that?
Yeah.
Verse 33 says, through faith.
And then in the end, the way he dies,
Samson didn't see her there.
the way he dies, he proved that he's not weak. Not many people would have done that, what he said when he died.
Well, yeah, possibly. As we've gotten to the end of the judges, think through the judges we've looked at. And think who's listed there. And if you were to write your description of the judges, how would you describe them and their character?
They're strong and weak at the same time.
Strong and weak at the same time? Is Samson your first choice to put into a chapter about faith? He wouldn't be mine. And yet, here he is.
Yeah.
Here he is in a chapter here. Who else do we have here? Samson, Jephthah. The guy who makes a pagan-influenced vow to God and kills his daughter. Hebrews 11. Do you know who's not listed here? Perhaps the greatest judge, Othniel. Out of all the judges, if you were to go through all the judges and say, who is the most godly? The first one, Othniel. He's not here. Instead, we've got Samson,
Yeah.
Jephthah,
Yeah.
who are listed with David,
The prophets.
Samuel,
Yeah.
and the prophets.
The prophets, yeah.
That's weird, isn't it?
It's not weird because it was before Jesus.
Before or after Jesus, it's still the same. You still have a bunch of people who don't really seem to be the characters you want to emulate. And yet, here they are. It's interesting, perhaps, to note that they are not praised individually for their character, but they are praised for what they accomplished
Yeah.
in Hebrews. So they're not put up there perhaps as character examples, but they show that God did what he did and what they accomplished. It's also interesting to look at it in the whole context of Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11, from beginning to end, is about people whose faith is weak and unstable. It's not the strongest. It's Abraham, who doubted God.
Yeah.
It's Moses, who doesn't get to enter the promised land this isn't the list. You know, we often go, this is the great hall of faith, and as if it's people we ought to... These are people who struggled with their faith
Yeah.
all along the way. And it's no different with the judges. God, the lesson perhaps in this, Nat, is that God isn't looking for perfection.
No.
Because who's going to reach that standard?
Because there's no perfection in humans.
Well, there isn't.
That's
As we saw in chapter 15, it's revealing that a man who has revelled in his own strength finds himself in a place of weakness and there calls to God. And God helps him. So let's look at question 10 then, to follow that up, which is, why do you think he describes them this way?
God knows people. God knows us. He knows how we are.
Well, he does know us.
Yeah.
Well, it is going to show who God is.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But Lord, because it doesn't matter who is the person. What matters is God's work that reveals everything.
Right, the work of God. Well, take even at the end,
we should
when
glorify-
Samson has his hands over
Yeah.
the pillars and his reason is selfish,
Yeah.
but he asks God for strength one more time, and
Yeah.
what does he expect of God?
To do it. Yeah.
To do it, to give him the strength.
If this is for us, the lesson for us is that we should glorify God, not people.
Well, God should be glorified in all things.
Yeah.
Though they are all human,
Yeah.
and they are all inconsistent and deeply flawed,
Yeah.
all of them showed faith.
Yeah.
Was it weak, faulty, often misguided?
Yeah.
It was.
Selfish.
But all of them believed God would do what he said. They all believed that God was going to use them to deliver Israel
Yeah.
and to do what he said. Even though they were inconsistent, weak, and troubled. You know, it was... Take, for instance, the progress from Hebrews 11 to Hebrews 12. Hebrews 11 gives us this list of people who are said to be people of faith, with weak and inconsistent lives, but still faith. And then we come to immediately into chapter 12. Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. Right? Which all of these people were easily ensnared by sin.
Yeah.
The race that is set before us. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher
Okay.
of our faith.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't that they had complete faith, that their faith was all. It's that Jesus is the one that completes our faith. Jesus is the one that fills it, that ends it. I, in my own, am never going to have the faith I need to have. Hebrews 11 begins, where is it? Hebrews 11 verse 6, right? A verse we probably all know pretty well. But without faith it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So what it tells us here is Without faith, it is impossible to please God. It does not say, without perfect faith,
No.
it is impossible to please God.
Yeah.
Just without faith. And what is our faith? Our faith is that we believe God is who he says he is. He who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. You can look at the questions to finish there and consider those as we go through. But the last thoughts there are give thanks and praises. Give thanks that God accepts the faith of imperfect people like us and the judges. And ask God to give you the strength to keep living an attractive, obedient, distinctive Christian life. Right? So none of this means that it's okay to just keep living in screwball faith. Right? We're all told, grow in faith. But it also means that I don't have to imagine that I have to have perfect faith for God to use me, or God to do what he needs to do through me. He will use you, he will fill you, he will give you what you need, even when your faith is imperfect. That brings us to the end of the Judges. Next week we'll come to the last of the book of Judges, as it summarises it for us and transitions us into what takes place next and what that means. So next week will be the last in our study of the Judges. All right, quickly, anything you want to add or say in regards to Samson this evening? Yeah.
Chapter 16 is just like it showed us the end of Samson's life. Because from chapter 15 already ended that he judged Israel for 20 years. Then 16 again, he judged Israel for 30 years. It's just like an outro of his life.
And the little bit after the credits. Yeah, it's a tragic story. All right, well, let's take a few minutes to pray, and I don't mean this to sound